Okay, guys, the Mayan calendar. The Mayans had this cyclical calendar that would rotate. They had a short calendar that was based on a 260-day span of time that was based on the gestation of a baby. That was a sacred time period they had. And then, of course, the 365-day, or I think they counted it 360-day solar year. And then those two wheels, the 260-day wheel and the 360-day wheel, would rotate at different rates, and they would match up every 52 years. So that was their lifespan. That was one count that they had. They also had this longer count that was really interesting, and it's really obscure exactly where it comes from. And they had this idea that the world ended and was reborn again in these different cycles. And they had, I believe the Mayans had a 4-cycle history of humanity, that we were in the 4th cycle. I think the Aztecs had this also. I haven't read up on the Aztec cycle, ages of man, in a while. But Hesiod is the one I'm most familiar with. That was the ancient Greek shepherd who wrote a lot of mystical poetry and had these visions about the ages of man, the golden age, the silver age, the bronze age, and we're living in the iron age. Each of these ages was wiped out in turn. So the Mayans also had this idea, as did the Aztecs, that the world would be destroyed in the future as it was in the past. And our age that we're living in now would reach an end, and a new age would begin after that, okay? Now, exactly when the Mayan predicted this is kind of up in the air, okay? There's a researcher that was named, what was his name? His name was Coe, I think, an author. And it's controversial. You know, a lot of people really don't believe that the Mayans believed the world would end. But I think I think it's convincing that they believed that the world would end and be born again. Michael D. Coe wrote in the Maya, there's a suggestion that Armageddon would overtake the degenerate people of the world and all creation on the final day of the 13th Baktun. And that was 2112. Now, it's interesting because that's not a great reset number for them. Their number was, what was it, 7,800 year cycle. 7,885 year cycle that's going to end in the year 4,700 something AD. So that's the end of their long count cycle. But there's some evidence that they had predicted this 13th Baktun, that would be 2112, would be the end of this current age. Now, here's the thing, okay? There's some evidence that as the Earth and our solar system orbit the galaxy, we reach an area at which we shift from one side of the galaxy to the other. So from a positive to a negative, or a north to a south, if you like, so that something changes as the Earth and our solar system move around the galaxy. There's a cycle there. Now, some people say it's a 6,000 year cycle, some people say it's a 12,000 year cycle, or a 6,000 year harmonic of the 12,000 year cycle. Okay, I don't want to get into that. The science is just too much for me and my channel to really discuss at length, but I'll put some links to some really interesting videos about that. There's quite a bit of evidence that the Earth is in some kind of 12,000 year disaster cycle, and we're headed for that. Now, this is what people aren't thinking about, okay? If the Mayan predicted 2112, and let's say they're 20 years off. And let's say that there is a 12,000 year cycle or a 6,000 year cycle. And we hit that. We run into that wall in at 2032, something like that, okay? 2042 maybe. And they pick 2012. I'm sorry if I said 2112. They picked 2012 and they missed it by, let's say, 30 years or 20 years. That's amazingly accurate for a 6,000 year cycle. Now, here's the interesting thing, okay? Hesiod and the Greeks didn't have any kind of prediction. A lot of people have tried to find a prediction in the Christian Bible, but I don't think it's there. I've never been convinced by any of their evidence. But there is some good evidence that the Mayan did predict this at 2012. Now, why? That is the thing. And how? If they hit it by, let's say, 20 years or 30 years off, that's still very, very close. That's close to the bullseye. If they hit it, that would be an indication that there's a continuity there, a continuity of thought that goes back before this cycle. So let's say it's not a 6,000 year cycle. Let's say it's a 12,000 year cycle that we're about to hit. And the Maya predicted it would be in 2012, and it ends up being in 2042. They missed it by 30 years. A 12,000 year cycle that they missed by 30 years. That's fantastically accurate. So it must have been a civilization that understood and monitored and predicted this, that taught it to the Olmecs, who taught it to the Maya, who gave them this calendar. It blows your mind, because the previous cycle, if it was a 6,000 year cycle, okay, let's say Noah's flood, if the only civilization that existed through that event, there's no way that that event, at least in the Christian Bible or in Gilgamesh, that event is not depicted as something cyclical that happens within a certain time frame. So it has to be a civilization that survived multiple of these events in order to get a feel for exactly what the rhythm is. Or they developed, tremendous technology like we have in order to send up satellites and start analyzing the universe in detail and getting elaborate mathematical data on everything. So either way, it's just fascinating that they could have hit it that quickly if there is a 6,000 or 12,000 year cycle coming up. It really points to the existence of something significant that the Maya were descended from. The Maya were a continuity, had some kind of continuity with a tremendous history that we only have a very faint echo of now. But it's still there. It's there enough in their calendar for us to see it. I think that's fascinating. I just wanted to share that. It really deserves some meditation. The Yonaguni monument, a lot of people have told me it resembles a Maya plaza. Just interesting stuff. If they hit it that date with 30, 40 year miss, and if it does end up being a 12,000 year cycle, it's absolutely amazing, guys. Absolutely amazing. And I just don't see anybody talking about it. It really deserves a little bit of consideration. Well, I hope you're doing well.